In February of 1959, a group of 9 experienced hikers set out into the frozen mountains of the Soviet Union. They were young, strong, well-trained, the kind of people who knew how to survive in some of the harshest conditions on Earth. But only a few days into their expedition, something happened. Something so strange that more than 60 years later, people are still trying to explain it. In the middle of the night, all 9 hikers suddenly fled their tent. They left behind their boots, their coats, their supplies, and they ran out into a deadly blizzard. Some would never be seen alive again. What happened on that mountain remains one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in modern history. This is the Dyatlov Pass incident.
The story begins with a group of university students and experienced outdoor adventurers from what was then the Soviet Union. The expedition was led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, an accomplished skier and hiking instructor. The goal was ambitious, but not unusual for the group. They planned to cross a remote section of the northern Ural Mountains during the heart of winter. It would be difficult, but everyone involved had extensive experience in harsh environments. This wasn't a group of reckless amateurs. These were skilled hikers who had successfully completed demanding expeditions before. After weeks of preparation, the team began their journey into the frozen wilderness. At first, everything seemed normal. Photographs from the expedition show smiling faces, shared meals, and moments of laughter despite the brutal cold. Nothing in those final images hints at the mystery that was about to unfold. As the group moved deeper into the mountains, conditions became increasingly difficult. Heavy snow, strong winds, bitter temperatures. But they pressed on. For them, hardship was part of the adventure. Eventually, one member of the expedition became ill and turned back. That decision would save his life. The remaining 9 continued forward, and unknowingly walked into history. On February 1st, 1959, the group reached the slopes of a mountain known as Kholat Syakhl. Translated from the language of the local Mansi people, the name is often interpreted as Dead Mountain. The name sounds ominous today, but at the time, it meant very little to the hikers. As evening approached, the group made camp on an exposed hillside. For reasons still debated, they chose not to descend into the shelter of the nearby forest. Instead, they pitched their tent on the open slope. The wind howled across the mountain. Snow drifted around the campsite. Inside the tent, the hikers settled in for the night. They ate, talked, recorded notes in their journals, and eventually went to sleep. None of them knew that this would be the last night of their lives. At some point during the darkness, something happened. And whatever it was enough to send all 9 hikers into the freezing wilderness.
When rescue teams eventually reached the campsite weeks later, they found something deeply unsettling. The tent was still standing, partially collapsed beneath snow, but it wasn't empty in the way anyone expected. Inside were boots, warm clothing, food, personal belongings, everything a person would need to survive. The most disturbing detail was the condition of the tent itself. Investigators discovered cuts in the fabric, and evidence suggested the hikers had cut their way out from the inside. Instead of using the entrance, they had sliced through the tent wall and escaped directly into the night. Footprints led away from the campsite. The tracks appeared to show people walking downhill toward the forest, not running, not fighting, simply leaving. As if whatever had driven them from the tent was more frightening than the freezing temperatures outside. The question was immediate. Why would experienced hikers abandon shelter in sub-zero conditions? And why would they do it without proper clothing? No clear answer was found.
The first bodies were discovered near the edge of the forest. 2 hikers were found beneath a cedar tree. They were dressed only in light clothing, despite the brutal cold. Nearby, evidence suggested they had attempted to build a fire. A short distance away, rescuers found more members of the group. Some appeared to have been trying to return to the tent, as though they had realized the danger they were in and desperately tried to make their way back. Months passed before the remaining hikers were located. Deep beneath the snow, investigators discovered the final members of the expedition. And with those discoveries, the mystery became even stranger. Several hikers had suffered severe injuries. Some injuries were so significant that investigators compared them to those seen in major vehicle collisions. Yet there were surprisingly few external wounds. No signs of a prolonged struggle, no obvious evidence of another group attacking them. One victim suffered major chest injuries. Another had severe skull trauma. Several had unusual damage that fueled decades of speculation. Over the years, countless rumors emerged. Secret military experiments, unknown atmospheric phenomena, even paranormal explanations. As each new detail became public, the mystery grew. But many of the most sensational claims were exaggerated over time. The reality was complicated enough on its own. A group of experienced hikers had left the safety of their shelter and died under circumstances that seemed difficult to explain. And for decades, nobody could fully agree on why.
Many explanations have been proposed. The most widely accepted theory involved some form of avalanche or snow slab event. According to this idea, the hikers may have believed their campsite was in immediate danger. Faced with what they thought was a collapsing slope, they cut their way out of the tent and moved downhill as quickly as possible. Once outside, darkness, confusion, and extreme weather may have prevented them from returning. Other researchers have suggested powerful winds created unusual acoustic effects that triggered panic. Some point to military activity in the region. Others believe a combination of environmental factors is responsible. The truth is that every theory answers some questions while leaving others unresolved. And that uncertainty is why the story continues to fascinate people around the world. Today, the mountain is quiet. The snow continues to fall across the same remote slopes. The tent is gone. The rescue teams are gone. And the people who searched for answers are gone too. But the mystery remains. Perhaps one day, every detail of what happened on that mountain will be understood. Or perhaps the final moments of the Dyatlov expedition disappeared forever into the storm. More than 60 years later, the question remains the same. What made 9 experienced hikers leave the safety of their tent and walk into the freezing darkness?